Lewis Hamilton finished fifth in Monaco, yet left the paddock with a tension that numbers couldn't explain. Moments after the flag, his radio cut through the silence. "Are you upset with me or something?" A question laced with unease and met with silence. This wasn't just a driver seeking clarity, it was a man reading between the lines of a strained relationship. Ferrari had already compromised his weekend by feeding him wrong information in Q1, leading to a penalty for impeding Verstappen. From there, Hamilton was trapped in traffic, radio messages were vague, and trust eroded with every lap. Engineer Riccardo Adami offered little. When Hamilton asked if the lead pack was still nearly a minute ahead, Adami dodged. Only later came the real answer, 48 seconds behind. Too late, too cold. Team boss Vassar downplayed it, blaming radio timing and insisting Hamilton wasn't upset. But the lack of dialogue, the flat tone, the emotionally vacant responses, they told a different story. Hamilton doesn't ask such questions unless something's already broken. Lewis Hamilton's Monaco unraveled the moment Ferrari fed him false information. In Q1, they told him Verstappen was slowing. He wasn't. The result? Hamilton blocked Max, took a 3-place grid penalty, and dropped from 5th to 8th. But this wasn't about losing positions. It was about losing trust. Starting behind slower cars in Monaco is a death sentence. Hamilton found himself stuck behind Hajar and Alonso, 2 rolling roadblocks, while Leclerc sailed away. The overcut came late, and though it worked, it was cosmetic. By then, Hamilton had lost 12 seconds to his teammate. The damage had been done before lap 1. Ferrari called it a simple misjudgment. But for a team with Hamilton's experience and pedigree, such errors are inexcusable. In Mercedes, he had precision. At Ferrari, he's met with guesswork masked as guidance. What Hamilton experienced wasn't miscommunication, it was misalignment. A team that doesn't speak his language, doesn't anticipate his questions, doesn't match his urgency. And at Monaco, that disconnect wasn't hidden. It was broadcasted in real time. Lewis Hamilton's race in Monaco was defined by isolation. After the penalty, he fell into the midfield vortex, behind Hajar's Racing Bull and Alonso's Aston Martin. Monaco doesn't forgive track position, and Ferrari's earlier mistake now had full consequences. He couldn't attack, couldn't defend, just circulate, stuck in purgatory. When Hajar and Alonso finally pitted on laps 14 and 16, Hamilton had a brief window of clear air. He used it well, overcutting both, but the gain was meaningless. Leclerc, running freely up front, had already built a 12-second lead, and with every lap, that gap widened. Between laps 33 and 39, Hamilton was losing between 1 and 3 seconds per lap to his own teammate. This wasn't about traffic anymore. It was the car, or more precisely, the car's language. Hamilton still isn't at ease with the SF25's embedded handling traits. He's called it a steep learning curve, but that curve is becoming a cliff. By the time of his pit stop on lap 56, the damage was irreversible. Slow in lap, flat out lap, confused timing. The gap to Leclerc ballooned to 48 seconds. This wasn't just a difference in pace, it was a signal that Hamilton and Ferrari are still speaking different dialects of performance. Lewis Hamilton doesn't waste words on the radio, so when he asked mid-race if the group ahead was still nearly a minute in front, it wasn't idle curiosity, it was frustration. Riccardo Adami's reply was vague. Tire compounds, turn numbers, nothing that answered the question. Hamilton's response cut deep. You're not answering the question. That moment exposed more than just poor communication. It revealed a disconnect in priorities. Hamilton wanted clarity. He got misdirection. And when the answer finally came, he's 48 seconds ahead, the emotional gap was already too wide to bridge. Ferrari defended it. Vasseur called it normal, blamed tunnel zones, timing delays. But Hamilton knows when someone's stalling. He's raced long enough to hear the tone behind the message, to detect when control is replacing connection. In Monaco, surrounded by walls, Hamilton wasn't just physically trapped. He was emotionally isolated. The man who thrives on information, who builds rhythm through dialogue, was left speaking into a void. And in Formula One, silence doesn't mean peace, it means fracture. Lewis Hamilton's cool-down lap message was polite, composed. Big thank you to the boys. We live to fight another day. But tone is everything. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't unity. It was a man going through the motions. Gratitude, yes, but stripped of warmth. And then came the question no top driver asks without reason. Are you upset with me or something? That wasn't gamesmanship. It was raw, human, vulnerability in real time. Hamilton, after carrying the car through a bruising weekend, was now questioning whether his own engineer had emotionally checked out. And the reply? Silence. This isn't the Hamilton who argues with engineers mid-race like at Mercedes. This was something else. Detachment. No fire, no confrontation, just distance. Adami didn't push back. He didn't clarify. He disappeared behind protocol. For a 7-time world champion used to working with tight, communicative crews, this felt less like a bad day and more like a breakdown in structure. When silence meets suspicion, doubt becomes louder than data. And for Hamilton, that doubt is now in the open. After the race, Frederic Vasseur faced the media with his usual composed deflection. There's no tension, he said. We just don't speak in corners. On the surface, it was logical. Behind the scenes, it reeked of damage control. Ferrari has done this before, wrap real problems in rational-sounding explanations. But Hamilton's body language post-race didn't match Vasseur's script. He looked withdrawn, disconnected. Not angry, not explosive, just empty, like a driver who wasn't part of the conversation anymore. The team insists all is fine, yet in the details, the vague radio calls, the lack of engineer engagement, the cold silence after a direct question, something feels fundamentally off. Ferrari isn't just managing a new driver, they're managing a legacy. And so far, they're shrinking from it. The internal friction isn't about ego, it's about philosophy. Hamilton expects transparency. Ferrari offers filters. And when a champion begins to sense that clarity is optional, belief starts to decay. Quietly, but fatally. Lewis Hamilton didn't join Ferrari to play second fiddle, but in Monaco, the contrast between him and Charles Leclerc couldn't have been starker. Leclerc, Ferrari's native son, blends into the structure. He knows the tempo, speaks the coded language. Hamilton, by contrast, disrupts it, and that disruption is creating quiet tremors inside Maranello. Ferrari is now balancing two opposing forces. Leclerc has adapted to the team's risk-averse culture. Hamilton demands precision, speed, and answers. One plays within the lines, the other redraws them. In Monaco, this split became visible, not in open conflict, but in communication patterns. Leclerc got smooth feedback. Hamilton got vagueness and silence. This isn't about favoritism, it's about compatibility. And right now, Ferrari is struggling to match Hamilton's operating system. No team survives long with two conflicting leadership energies. The engineers feel it. The strategists feel it. One car moves in sync, the other moves in doubt. And in a sport where milliseconds matter, that philosophical gap is a performance gap. Lewis Hamilton came to Ferrari for more than nostalgia. He came for legacy, for a final title, for a shot at rewriting history in red. But Monaco didn't feel like the start of a redemption arc. It felt like a warning. The SF25 isn't a disaster, but it's not intuitive. And Hamilton, master of car feel and race flow, still seems at odds with its core behavior. He admits the learning curve is steep, but that's not the real issue. The real concern is cultural. Ferrari's structure doesn't serve the kind of feedback loop Hamilton thrives on. In Monaco, the silence, the vague responses, the lack of urgency, they all pointed to a team uncomfortable with a driver who challenges the system. Hamilton doesn't just drive fast, he forces standards to rise. Ferrari, meanwhile, often hides behind history and procedure. This isn't just a mechanical mismatch, it's a philosophical one. And unless Maranello is willing to shift internally, this story may end not with a title, but with another lesson in how greatness alone can't fix a broken culture.